Hey everybody, welcome to Storm Talk. I'm Wave 3 News meteorologist Brian Good. I have a lot to cover for this edition of the video blog, so bear with me as I break down a lot of details that'll take place for this event over the next 48 hours. Alright, start you off with the outlooks as we always do. Today the severe weather is going to be found in the plain states ahead of the actual cold front that is now taking shape, and then the warm front is now becoming active as well across the Arctic region heading into the Ozarks. That will be our warm front we'll be dealing with for tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, that risk level does move more to the east over us. In the yellow, that is the slight risk of severe weather. Still on the low end of the scale, but it's in the severe weather category. And then on Friday, the risk mainly along and south of 64. We're going to talk more about that here in just a second. All right, this afternoon, though, at least it's another gorgeous day outside. You see another blue sky overhead. And got some high thin clouds streaming in. What this will likely do is lead to a beautiful sunset this evening. So get your cameras ready. I think we're going to have a nice picturesque look to the sky. Lots of reds showing up. Later on, some pinks as well. Temperatures are slightly cooler today. We'll still make it into the 70s, though, because we've got very dry air, and the sun heats up dry air rapidly, so we should have no problem getting there. All right, so here's a wider view. You already see what's taking shape. I mentioned those outlooks in this area. Already getting thunderstorms there, in fact, and we're about to get storms firing up. In fact, right in through here, you see the cumulus developing there in portions of Nebraska. That should begin to fire up into some nice supercells here in the next few hours. All right, for us, it's just these high thin clouds we'll deal with between now and, say, 4 a.m. And then after 4 a.m., we'll get into the thicker clouds, which will actually be the warm front itself that will be moving through. So we do have the outlook that is in effect. Now, this is going to change. This will likely update after I tape this video blog, and we'll try to keep you updated on social media on what the new outlook maps look like, if there's any changes at all, for not only for tomorrow, but also for the one on Friday. But I have an event to head to, so I won't be able to capture them here for the video blog at the moment. But we do have at least the chance right now and the slight risk, as I mentioned, across Indiana, northern Kentucky. They're drawing this mainly for the best wind fields to be found here for the afternoon and again for the overnight period. And then as we into Friday, the issue there is wind fields. I'll show you in a second the reason why they've mainly placed at south of 64. But my issue here is there could be some instability. We may have the best winds in Indiana, but there may be enough instability that I would argue that this may need to be pushed further to the north. But again, that's their call on that. Just letting everybody know, everybody really has a chance at a strong or maybe severe storm as we get into tomorrow and into Friday. Is this a major outbreak? No. These are just waves of thunderstorms. Few could produce a wind gust warning. Again, the warning criteria is 58 miles per hour. Maybe some large hail. It's got to be 1 inch in diameter to trigger a warning. A lot of pea-sized hail, that's not a warning. It may sound like it's scary outside. It may cover the ground 3-4 inches deep. But pea-sized hail is not a severe thunderstorm criteria. But that's possible. We could see those stones get up to 1 inch in some locations. Most areas, probably about quarter size, would be the main concern there. So we'll watch that. But is this going to be a big tornado set up here? No. Is there a chance for an isolated tornado? Yes. Anytime you get a line of storms, I always call them the wiggles. If you get a squall line potential, any type of little bend, you may get a brief spin up that can develop. These are more likely to be the weak version of tornadoes, if any at all, that would develop here. And these are not going to be the big, massive storms you see out in the plain states they normally deal with. All right, so I'll make sure to put everybody's fears at ease on that end. This is mainly a straight line wind event, large hail potentially, and flooding. I'll get to that in a second. Let me show you the RPM model. I think it's got the best setup of how to explain all the moving parts we have with this setup here. Today quiet, tonight quiet. Tomorrow morning for the rush hour, as the warm front moves in, you'll start to see some spotty downpours develop, maybe some lightning and thunder here. Not expecting severe weather with that, but some downpours toward the end of rush hour, the way it's looking. Then we're firmly going to be arrived in the warm sector by late morning, and still some downpours and some lightning to contend with. Here's where things get a little more interesting. By 4 in the afternoon, it's indicating the warm surge will take place. Look at these numbers here. I mean, somebody could even hit 80 if we can have sunshine to break through. And you see what happens. There is going to be thunderstorms that develop here. And it's already showing on the Futurecast, which is remarkable, a Boeing segment for a straight line wind potential that could develop out of that cluster of storms. Why is it shown in here? I'll show you in a second, because there are good wind fields. There's a pocket of wind energy that passes right through this area in the afternoon hours Thursday, and the models seem to be feeding on that idea that if we get any instability, we climb into the 70s, something's going to grab a hold of that instability, and there's enough wind field energy aloft to create some Boeing segments in the afternoon. Not everybody will see it. In fact, the more south you are, the less likely you will. It's mainly along the north of 64 for that potential to take place. So that's one issue of potentially severe weather we'll watch tomorrow afternoon. Then we get into a leftover boundary from that. As it scoots on by, it's going to leave behind a boundary that'll be snaked somewhere across Indiana, northern Kentucky. Where that sets up is still kind of questionable, but it'll be close to us. Showers and storms will then break out. I don't know if these really will be severe at this point, but a lot of lightning, very heavy rain. They may sound and look severe, but torrential downpour is expected, and that line will likely sink to the south, become progressive. But at the same time, this is happening early Friday morning. Another area of low pressure is approaching us from the west. As that begins to move in, it starts to kick up the rain band even more and potentially produce damaging winds and blowing segments for our southern counties. This is where you can get a brief little spin up. You get these little notches that can form. So we'll watch that. But notice the time. It's right at sunrise or close to it Friday morning. So instability is less at that time compared to what you would have in the heat of the day. But I think there's enough at play here that we got to watch for maybe an isolated one or two. But more importantly, notice the east-west band of thunderstorms. Anytime we see that on the models, we automatically have red flags going up for the potential for flash flooding and excessive rainfall. And that has to be watched, because if this boundary does not move much at all, we want it to move far away south, or at least move up and down enough back and forth to where not the same areas get the heaviest rain over and over. But the fear is that some areas may see this band just get locked in right over you, and that would be a problem. Now, as we head into Friday morning, yet another band of thunderstorms rolls in. This will be late morning. Now, I'm going to stop the model right after this point, because here's the debate in the afternoon hours. Better wind energy is found here, but see what's happening. There's a chance for some sun to break back out, and the cold front is still right here, by the way. Right across the Wabash, north of the Wabash, Indiana. So until that pushes through, the chance is going to be there for yet another round of storms, maybe a squall line to develop in the afternoon. But it's all dependent on any sunshine, the ability to become more unstable again in the afternoon, and what happens to that rain band here Friday morning. So we can't answer that question, but this gives you at least a good idea of the time frames that we are watching for the Thursday afternoon, overnight, early Friday morning, and then potentially again Friday afternoon. Hope that all makes sense. But that's why there's a lot to track, and there's a lot of room for error, as some of these may not line up exactly as the models are saying. So here's the wind fields. The GFS and NAM very similar in this. That's why I'm just going to show you the GFS. Here's that pocket I was talking about Thursday afternoon. See how it crosses southern Indiana, heading towards Cincinnati? That's why that area could see a cluster of wind-damaging storms maybe Thursday afternoon. All right, overnight Thursday. Wind fields become more east-west, parallel to the actual front, actually, which is a good indicator as well for heavy rain. And notice if there's any blowing segments, it will likely be on the southern edge here, our southern counties that would feed on that potential. So really good outline here in the GFS. But look, here it comes. The Friday low already showing up here on the models. And as that pushes in on Friday, right now it's indicating, based on the track of the low, that the best chance for wind energy would be south of 64. That's why SPC has drawn it south of 64. But again, I wouldn't rule out, if we become unstable enough, we could see that a little further to the north. Here is the sounding, looking at the ground level all the way up. This is the NAM sounding. We look for turning of the winds to see any type of tornado potential. Here are the wind fields. This is a southwest wind at the ground. It goes to about west-southwest, way up loft. That's not exactly good turning of the wind, dramatic enough by any stretch to create a lot of twisting and moving going on. This is mainly directional, a unidirectional type of wind shear that we're talking about moving through. Now, as we enter the overnight, we still have that same look here. It's still mainly unidirectional that we're talking about, mainly either southwest or west-southwest. So not a lot of turning to create that spin action. But notice the low-level jet kicks in late Thursday night, early Friday morning. We get speed shear, so that's where you get those damaging wind gusts that can come down to the surface. And it's also a good sign of very heavy rain moving through the area. So that's something we'll be watching. Speaking of heavy rain, here's the P-watts from the NAM. P-watts is basically precipitable water. This value means if you get a thunderstorm over you, how much can it produce in 1 hour's time? And the P-watts here are showing up about 1.5 to almost 1.8 inches of rain per hour that could develop in West Kentucky and Central Kentucky out of that. And as a result, WPC, which issues not only outlooks for snow all the time, you see that 4-inch snow risk we talk about. In the spring and summer, they issue for heavy rain and flooding. Moderate risk in West Kentucky. Here's the RPM model. look what it's doing. You're seeing there's going to be a lot of banding that'll set up. It's spitting out 6 to 7 inches of rain. Wow, that's excessive. And while that may seem crazy, here's the NAM model. It's hard to read it, but it's spitting out 8.75 potentially in some spots that could fall in northern Kentucky. Let's hope that does not happen, because flash flooding would be a big problem. Still expecting cool weather, but dry and pleasant for the weekend. Much more today on Wave 3 News at 5.